Hello everyone, Andrew here, and welcome back to AL Studio. In this video, I wanted to create an accordion that had a focus on accessibility equal to that of, say, the functionality and the interface. So let's go ahead and dive into a demonstration here. We will be implementing dark mode as well because it's a very popular feature. And we're going to accomplish this by using Next Themes, so we can toggle light and dark. Our accordions, we can toggle by clicking on the title. We notice an icon here that will change to a minus or a plus depending on the open and closed states. And if we click on an accordion that is closed, it will close the one that is open. And now let's open up NVDA, which is a free to download screen reader, and let's hear what it has to tell us.
AL Studio.
So if I focus in on the first accordion by clicking tab here,
Press what is the last name of Johnny, Moira, David, and Alexis. Press enter to reveal the answer. Button collapsed heading level 3.
So it read to us a few things. It first gave us the content of our button there. It then said, press enter to reveal the answer, which we are accomplishing by using an Aria-Label attribute. It then said button collapsed because of the Aria-Expanded attribute, and that is set to false when the accordion is closed. So now if I click enter,
Rows. Press tab to hear the next question. Expanded.
It reads to us the answer, followed by press tab to hear the next question, which is again because of the Aria-Label, and then expanded because now our accordion is open, therefore the expanded is set to true. Now if we go to the second to last accordion, and let's reveal the answer and hear what different information will be read to us.
How much money did John? $2,000. Press tab to hear the final question. Expanded.
It now says press tab to hear the final question, and this was my attempt at eliminating as much of the guesswork as possible for our users who are relying on these screen readers or other assistive technologies as they navigate and use your website. That being said, let's go ahead and transition over to GitHub, where I will give you a brief walkthrough on how you can get started with this project. Okay, so just as a friendly reminder, the link to this repository can be found in the description. And as I was finishing up making this project, I decided to go ahead and create 3 additional branches. One is a vanilla CSS, which for those of you who would prefer to use CSS rather than Tailwind CSS, I made this available for you. It is in its completed state, so you can use it as a reference as you follow along. We then have 2 starting templates, one with and one without Tailwind. And in this case, I made a unique decision to me anyway, to go ahead and provide all of the markup, all of the styling, and pretty much give you a finished product minus the functionality and the accessibility attributes. I am curious what you may think about this decision. I typically like to do things from scratch, but in the effort to focus primarily on accessibility and functionality, I did make this call, so shoot me a comment down below and let me know what you think about that decision. Okay, so we are going to be using the with Tailwind branch here, so we can click code, right chia. We're going to copy this address, hop into, I'm using VSCode, so I'm going to hop into VSCode. I have a terminal opened. You can either press Ctrl-J if you're on Windows. You can also click terminal up here and click new terminal. And we're going to run the git command, git clone, paste in that address, followed by a period /, and this is going to clone that repository inside of the root of that newly created folder. And now we want to check out the branch we are using. So we're going to run the git command again, git checkout starting -template -with -tailwind, and that will bring us into that branch. And while we are getting a quick walkthrough on what the on our folder and files, let's go ahead and run npm I to get our dependencies installed. And now we can look into our package.json. We have React icons, Next themes, and our Tailwind dependencies. If we hop into our Tailwind config here, we see some custom styles. We have this dark mode class, which if you reference the Tailwind documentation, that is the newer way to target dark mode when using the Tailwind utility classes. If we look into our styles and globals.css, we have our Tailwind directives as well as our Google font import statements. And this is just the basic CSS markup that comes with Create Next App. And if you are in the without Tailwind branch, then you will see all of the CSS styles already curated for you. Okay, if we look into our pages and index.js, as I mentioned before, all of our imports have been created for us. Our components have been created for us, and they're styled and marked up state with the exception of functionality. So let's go ahead and run npm run dev so we can get our local host up and running. I'm going to control click this HTTP address. And if nothing happens, just go to your browser and it should have opened up in the background. And as you see, here is our styled but unfinished project. So the first thing I want to do is implement our dark mode. So we can go ahead, I'm going to close this, and open our _app.js file. And we're going to cut this for a moment because we're going to wrap our entire app within a theme provider, which comes from Next Themes. And because of how we're going to target our dark mode using both Tailwind and CSS, if you're on that branch, then we need to add attribute equals class. And if we click save and go back to our local host, we notice that we have this class equals dark. And what that is effectively doing is, if we hop into our styles again, that is giving us the ability to target our dark mode by using HTML.dark, because dark mode can be referenced as a class now, and then say you wanted to target a button and change some property based on dark mode being active. You just say button and then background white, whatever you want to do. So that's what the attribute equals class is allowing us to accomplish. Okay, so I'm going to close some files here, hop into our components folder and ThemeSwitcher.jsx. And the first thing we want to do here is go ahead and bring, or destructure rather, a couple of things from useTheme, which is a hook that comes from Next Themes, and we want to destructure resolvedTheme and setTheme. And we're going to use these within our button. And I want to now create a function that's going to render our icons based on the resolved theme. So we can say const theme icons is equal to an arrow function. And we're going to say if the resolved theme is equal to dark, we can return our HI outline sun icon, followed by a couple of Tailwind classes, which we're going to say text extra large, and on medium and larger screens, text 2XL. And if we hover over this MD, that's just adding a media query for all screen sizes larger than 768 pixels. So if we now add an else if resolved theme equals light, then we can say MD outline dark mode followed by that same Tailwind, those same Tailwind classes. And if we go ahead and look back at our local host, we see our sun icon here. I'm going to close this. And now we need to add an on-click functionality to allow us to toggle between the two icons and between our light and dark mode. So we can say on-click, and we're going to call that setTheme function. And within that setTheme function, we're going to say if the resolved theme is equal to, we'll say dark mode, we're going to do a ternary operator and say then render or switch to light mode, else switch it to dark mode. So if it's dark, it'll switch to light. If it's light, it will switch to dark. And if we go back to our browser, we now have full. Whoops. I forgot to do the return, it looks like, on our dark mode there. And now we have full functionality for our dark and light mode. However, if we click refresh, we run into one of the quirks with Next.js, which it gives you a hydration failed because the initial UI does not match what was rendered on the server. Reason being, Next.js renders things on the server, so if we refresh the page, there can be this mismatch between the two. So what we can do to fix that, and this strategy comes from the Next Themes documentation, we can bring in a state and a use effect. So we can say use state snippet, and we're going to say on component mount, call this whatever you want, but I'm trying to be explicit here, and we're going to set this to false. And then we're going to say use effect, bring in our empty dependency array, and all we're going to do is say set on component mount to true. And because use effects will run on the client, we are storing this truthy value in our on component mount state once our component mounts onto the client or is hydrated. So in addition to our resolved theme checks here, we can do on component mount, check if that's true, and check and see which theme we have resolved into, and only then will we render our icons. So if we go back to our browser, click refresh, we no longer have that issue with hydration. Again, because we are waiting for the component to mount onto our client or become hydrated before we ever render those icons. So there will not be that mismatch between the server and the client. And finally, I want to add a title attribute to our button, which is going to say if resolved theme equals dark, then click to switch to light mode, else click to switch to dark mode. And what this is doing is, say you have a user that is visiting your site and they see this icon, but they don't quite understand what it's supposed to do. We can mouse over it. It'll provide a tooltip, just telling the user, hey, you can click this to toggle this mode. And then they do that, and they're like, that's what that does. So just a little enhancement on the user experience. And with all that said and done, we have completed our dark mode implementation. So we can now go ahead and navigate to our trivia folder, our index.jsx, and begin working on finishing out our accordion. Okay, so just in case you are using the timestamps to jump ahead, we are inside of our components directory, our trivia folder, and using now the index.jsx file. So as I mentioned before, all of the markup and styling has been taken care of in advance. That being said, I want to give a brief walkthrough of what's happening inside the file. So on at or around line 16, we are using the .map method to iterate over our trivia question array. The .map takes in at least one value, and you can call this whatever you want. I'm going to call it trivia, and it acts as a keyword to represent each iteration over the array. It's a simplified version of it for you. We are also going to bring in the index. On line 18 there, or the next line below, we see the key prop taking in the trivia.question value. And the key requires a unique value. So if you are using something, a headless CMS such as Sanity or Strappy, you may use something like an underscore ID or an underscore key or something like that. For our purposes, we can use the question because it will be unique. We have our button, which houses our trivia question wrapped inside of an H3 tag, which is for semantics. And then down below we have our section, which wraps around our P tag, which has our trivia answer. And as far as the accessibility and semantics goes, I did find a website called Aditus, which had some great information on how to build an accessible accordion. And of course, you can find this link in the description. But the first thing we want to do is go ahead and work on the toggle functionality for our accordions. So we can first create a use state snippet, create a state called isClicked and set isClicked, and we're going to set it to null by default. We can now hop down to our button here and create an onClick event, which is going to call a function called revealAnswer. And this revealAnswer on click is going to pass the accordion's index, that is the accordion being clicked, its index to the revealAnswer function. We can go below our state and create that function. So revealAnswer is equal to an arrow function which accepts that index. And at first we just want to open them. So we can say set isClicked, and we're going to store that index inside of our state. So we can now use this isClicked, scroll down to our section, and create a class name where we're going to say if the index of the accordion being clicked is equal to the index stored in our isClicked state, then we can call our accordion open variable, else call that accordion closed variable. And these variables can be found right up here. And this was just my attempt at minimizing the bloat within that section markup. And so now if we go back to our local host, we see all of our accordions are now closed. If we zoom in, if we click on one, it opens up. If we click another, then it opens up as well, but it closes the one that was previously opened. But we cannot close by clicking our accordion yet. So all we have to do is scroll back up, and inside of our revealAnswer function, we can say if the index of the accordion being clicked is equal to that isClicked state, then we can return set isClicked and set it back to null. And that's all there is to it. So now let's create those icons that will render based on the open and closed state. Okay, so now we can go back down to our button, or the span under our button, and we're going to call a function called toggleIcons that's going to render our different icons based on that open and closed state. So going back up and below our revealAnswer function, we can say const toggleIcons is equal to an arrow function, and this arrow function actually we need to pass an index and then accept an index, and all we're going to do is say if the index of the accordion being clicked is equal to that of the index stored in our isClick state. If those two are equal, we can return our AI outline minus icon to represent an open accordion. And if we do else, we can just return AI outline plus to indicate that you can click the accordion to open it. And so now if we go back to our local host, we can see that in action. So if we click, it turns to minus. If we click it again, it goes back to plus. And that actually makes the accordion. It is fully functional. It's not accessible though. We want to be able to give our readers, like I mentioned at the very beginning, enough information so as they are going through this accordion, which could be an FAQ, in this case it's a trivia, when they reveal that answer, we want to tell them, hey, go ahead and press tab to reveal the next question. Or when you get to this penultimate or second to last question and you reveal that answer, hey, press tab to reveal the final question. So let's go ahead and do that. We're going to first implement an Aria-Expanded attribute, which will indicate false for closed or true for open. So we can say Aria-Expanded, and if the index of the accordion being clicked is equal to the index stored in our isClicked, then using a ternary operator, we can say true, else we can say false. So now if we inspect and click on our button here, we have Aria-Expanded is false. But if we open it, it is now true. And that will be read to the user, button collapsed or button expanded. Now, let's get to my personal favorite attribute, which is the Aria-Label. We're going to call a function called screenReaderInstructions. And this is going to take in the trivia and the index, which is coming from the trivia and index in our .map. So going back above and below the toggle icons, we can create that function, const screenReaderInstructions is equal to an arrow function which accepts that trivia and index. And the first thing we need to do is make it so that when they get to that penultimate question or reveal that answer, it's going to say that press tab to hear the final question. So we can say if the index of the accordion being clicked is equal to, and now we need to identify that they are in fact on that second to last answer, if that index is equal to trivia question dot length minus 2, which represents that second to last item in the array, and if the index is equal to is clicked or is open, only then will we return trivia.answer plus press tab to hear the final question. And I actually discovered by accident that if you add these 3 dots, I'm not sure if it has to be 3 dots, I did not test that, but it creates a bit of a space in between the information being said. Otherwise, it's just back-to-back-to-back information. So now it will read to the user, press tab to hear the final question when they have toggled or activated that second to last answer. Okay, now let's do an else if the index is equal to the index stored in our isClicked, then we're going to return trivia answer plus press tab to hear the next question. And if you want to hear all these in action, feel free to go back to the demonstration at the beginning of the video. Else, return trivia.question, press enter to reveal the answer. And just like that, we have given our users so much more information to go off of. We now want to implement the last two Aria attributes, Aria-LabelledBy and Aria-Controls. And a quick note on the Aria-Controls, if we go back to our accessibility accordion or on the Aditus website, we see that the support for Aria-Controls is very limited. So only as of when this page was documented, only the JAWS screen readers will support it. However, this is an educational tutorial, so I want to go ahead and implement it. Going back to our local host here, and back into our index.jsx file, and we can go down to our section, and we're going to give it the Aria-LabelledBy attribute. And the value of this is going to be trivia.headingID. Why? Because we're going to tell our screen readers or the assistive technologies that this section is labeled by our button. And so we're going to give the button that same value of trivia.headingID. And very similarly, we're going to give the button the Aria-Controls attribute and give it the value of trivia.answerID, because the button controls the section that presents the answer. So we give the section the ID of the matching value. And with that, we are done with this project. I do not boast myself as an expert in accessibility by any means. That being said, if you noticed something that I could improve upon, please leave me a comment down below, and I will work to make these improvements for future videos. I am curious what you all thought about me providing all of the markup and styling ahead of time. I know some people prefer a built-from-scratch approach. As I said earlier, I just wanted to focus more on the accessibility and functionality aspects of this. And with all that said, I truly hope you all enjoyed this, and I look forward to your feedback, and I look forward to seeing you in the next video. Until then, this is Andrew from AL Studio, signing out.